Follow me and learn to be wise.
What does it mean to be wise?
To understand rightly, to do rightly, and to speak out rightly.
Oh,
What do you see?
nothing.
Why do you say nothing when there is something?
It's just a child lying on the ground.
Is it something you see every day?
Sadly, yes. Somewhere in the world, there is always a child lying on the ground.
How do you know?
There's one here.
Yes. Do you think we should do something?
Is this our duty?
What is duty?
Obligation.
Are you obligated to help the child to her feet?
Not really.
Then no, it's not your duty.
But I should help her.
Why?
It's the right thing to do.
And there begins your journey.
I don't think she likes us.
Daily, I see kings fall and contempt rises in their place.
There once was a great conference of all the birds in the world, birds who cackled, crowed, cawed, and cooed.
Birds that dallied, dabbled, dipped, and danced, bird-brained, bespeckled, broad-winged, and sneaky-beaked.
Whooping, swooping, and alley-ooping, teeth-picker, frog-sticker, seed-snacker, and Polly want a cracker?
Wren, robin, and raven, black, red, green, yellow, and bird of blue, despairing, staring, and carrying daring, tree bird, sea bird, free bird, snowbird, flying high, and low bird. All the birds of the world met to discuss a matter of grave importance.
It had come to their attention that mankind's kings had kind of made a mess of things. Certainly a bird king could do better, at the very least no worse.
But the birds had no king, and so a great conference.
Delegates arrived from every flock, every flight, solitude, and siege.
Every charm, every covey, every colony, company, host, caste, and convocation. Tittering and scattering, stand, scold, and murmuration.
Birds mustered and murdered, parliament, dissent and chime, gaggled, brood, race, bevy, and migratory V.
And never was such a gathering, and never again will be. The hoopoe was chosen to preside over the proceedings.
No one said no, for although the hopo wasn't the bravest, or the strongest, or the wisest, or the fiercest, he was a messenger of Solomon, and spoke without deception. Good evening. During tonight's presentation, you will be introduced to a wide range of birds. We have chosen to reference and often quote directly from Cassell's Book of Birds by Alfred Edmund Brehm, translated by Thomas Rymer Jones, and freely available in the public domain. Those of you who are familiar with modern works on ornithology will observe that it is common to commence the history of the feathered tribes by a description of the vultures, the most disagreeable and least intelligent of the race. Some writers considered the singing birds as entitled to the first position. For our part, we start with the hoopoe, as in this particular narrative, that's a good place to start. Lights, please. Classification: Searcher. Hoopoe, Eupupa epops, the family Eupupidae, is recognizable by its long, slender, slightly curved, and pointed beak. The wing is decidedly rounded. The impressive, distinct crest is of a deep reddish yellow, tipped with black. The hoopoe lives for its family and carries on constant warfare with its neighbors. Strangely, if taken young from the nest, they become quite tame and learn to obey and follow those who feed them, with all the fidelity and devotion of a favorite dog. Little care is shown by the hoopoe in selecting a spot suitable for building their nests. Trees, fissures in walls, houses, or holes in the ground are indiscriminately employed.
The Greek scholar Pallas mentions having found a nest containing 7 young birds in the thorax of a human skeleton.
Welcome, proud parrot. Greetings, falcon, king chosen, and duck, dipper, diver, wise on water. Welcome, immortal peacock. All eyes are on you. Nightingale, owl, crow, hawk. Welcome.
The hoopoe spoke of a journey to the sacred mountain to find the first bird, the golden feathered, the one to lead this age out of destruction. Parrot was first to voice alarm.
The sacred mountain is beyond even the strongest wing, and how do we even know Samorg even exists?
A giant feather fell in the east, and legend of Samorg spread throughout the world. This feather is imprinted on every beak.
The gathered first tried to read the writing under their eyes, then turned to neighbor high and neighbor low, peering beak to beak, but seeing nothing, turned to the hoopoo for answers. Seagull, boldly vocal, spoke up.
No doubt you tell a good story and you sure look the part. A journey short is always better than a mountain or molehill I'd be atop telling the world. I've never seen a sacred hill, you've never been and never will. Me and mine are just fine where we are.
There was a great ruffle of feathers and a click-clack of agreement, and that's all the approval Parrot needed to take action.
Look at me. What do you see?
I see parrot all lemon lime and honey dipped.
See my golden cage, my jeweled bracelet? Why would I leave all this to find the danger to seek out a king that may not even exist? I am parrot of a king.
A cage is a prison by design, barred and latched from the outside. A bracelet is a manacle attached to a chain.
A chain of gold.
Chain of gold, chain of iron, freedom is unchained. Consider the story of the last of your tribe, Vinka.
In a long time past, a parrot of great beauty named Vinka lived in the chambers of a princess in the highest tower of a mountain castle. From her perch in the window, Vinka spent every waking moment enjoying the view of the land and the sky far into the horizon.
Now Vinka knew no cage or binding and was free to hop and skip about the chambers, but she lived before flight was known by any creature, and while the sky was adorned with stars and pillared with clouds, it was empty of life. Yet Vinka was content.
One day, the princess announced she was to be a queen. Vinka watched her carriage get ever smaller until it disappeared over the horizon, far beyond Vinka's vision. Time passed, and one day Vinka saw the carriage returning, getting ever larger until it entered the castle. Within minutes, the newly crowned queen burst into the room with a small army of servants, who quickly started packing all her belongings.
The queen told Vinka all about the wonders of her new kingdom beyond the horizon. "It sounds so beautiful, my queen. I'm excited to see it all." The new queen said, "You? No one said you'd be coming. This tower is your home." "But your highness," Vinka said, "I want to see this new land. I'm tired of what I can only see out this window." The queen laughed and said, "You have no cage and no binding of any kind. You're free to follow, but that window is your only way out of this tower. Follow me if you can." And then she swept out of the room, slamming and locking the door behind.
Poor Vinka watched the queen's carriage get ever smaller until it disappeared over the horizon, followed by an almost endless baggage train. She dared a tiny hop closer to the window's ledge, but seeing how far below the ground was, she quickly skipped back. The wagon train trailed off into the sunset to a land more beautiful than could be imagined, for imagining is all Vinka could do.
There was no longer any joy for Vinka, try as she might to be content with all the beauty framed by her window. As days passed, so did her appetite, and the grumbling of her stomach kept her awake, so she no longer slept. With no food and no sleep, Vinka was soon as light as a puff of smoke. She sat staring out the window day after day.
One day, Vinka gasped to see a silhouette far in the distance. "Maybe the queen is coming for me," thought Vinka in her excitement. She hopped too close to the edge. A gust of wind picked her up and swept her into the sky. Her tiny heart pounded, and in her fear, she opened her wings wide, and she was no longer falling, but she was soaring, and soon Vinka commanded the sky like a queen.
Lifted as much by joy as air, she turned towards the horizon and the promise of great beauty beyond. As she flew, the sun rose behind her, and the eyes of all those bound to the ground looked up, especially those with wings. It seemed to all that Vinka came out of the sun itself. All below saw her wings and what they could do. Recognition bred courage, and soon the sky was filled with a feathered following, close behind, a beautiful bird born of the sun. Vinka and her new flock soon reached the Queen's kingdom, and as wondrous as it was, Vinka knew there was another over the next horizon, and the next, and freedom found by folly, won with courage, and conquered by flight, made the world's wonders Vinka's to discover.
Classification: crackers. Parrot. Cicotte of the order Cicotiformes is comprised at last count by 398 species, found mostly in tropical and subtropical locales. Crackers is an allusion to the facility with which, owing to the construction of their beaks, they are able to crack nuts and other hard seeds that form the usual staple of their food.
They are clever, lively, and active, much attached to the society of birds of their own species, though they do not often cultivate acquaintance with those belonging to a different family. Their great intelligence enables them to live comfortably even under disadvantageous circumstances, and their temperament allows them to fight the battle of life very cheerfully.
Once a girl,
and the raven became great friends.
the girl told the raven her biggest secret.
And the raven told the girl its biggest secret.
Each promised the other
Never to reveal the secret shared. The raven kept the promise like a pebble in its gizzard.
The girl, believing a raven's secret couldn't be important, shared it with her brother. Who shared it with another.
Who shared it with the baker?
Who shared it with the butcher while the buns were still hot.
Who told everyone who came into his shop. Now the butcher had a cat.
Who, on hearing the raven's secret, soon made a meal out of the nest of mature eggs.
This was no ordinary nest. It belonged to a bird sacred to the world. The next day, the sky darkened with the crime. Famine, pestilence, and death soon covered the land. Raven confronted the girl. "You have betrayed our friendship and broken our promise. You told my secret shared. You see the result? All life despairs at the loss of those sacred eggs, except for one fat cat."
The girl protested. Why would I ever believe a raven's secrets could destroy the world? Why do you even know something so sacred?
Secrets shared with a promise are sacred. Is a raven's less than a girl's because it's a raven's?
The girl replied, "You are solely to blame. Such a secret should remain sacred, even to a raven."
You speak of secrets, there is only one of importance. The secret of love, and all those are known to me. The mystery is found in my song. Why should I seek what I've already found? All should come to me for this knowledge.
Should love be a secret and kept from a world that needs it more and more every day?
Seven mountains and seven valleys between here at the end's journey. What's a mountain if not the wave's crest? And what's a valley if not the trough? We cross an ocean, I am not afraid. My wing is strong, no chains bind me, seen or unseen. True love is a love that lifts you above all chaos, and that is the sky. I am with you, messenger.
Classification: singers. Nightingale. Lucinia philomela of the family Musicopidae. This familiar species is reddish-gray upon the upper part of the body, the top of the head and the back being of a deeper shade. The underside is light yellowish-gray, palest on the throat.
Woods, groves, and leafy forests in the immediate vicinity of the water afford the favorite retreats of these most musical, most melancholy songsters. In such localities they live, each pair within its own domain, jealously guarded and boldly defended from all intrusion.
The general demeanor of the nightingale is eminently reserved and dignified, and would appear to indicate that it was fully conscious of the admiration it can command.
Once there was a boy
who was told by his dying father with his last breath that his most valuable possession in the world was the ground he stood upon.
The boy looked down and immediately claimed the ground he stood upon for his very own. He spent every cent of his inheritance to build a high fence to protect it.
Years passed, and the boy, now a man, spent his days guarding a square of land surrounded by a high fence. So high, in fact, that very little sun shone in, and soon the grass withered and died and turned to dust.
There came a day the boy, now a man, decided it was time to sell the land and enjoy his riches. A serious man in a hat came to appraise the land of its true value, and after a quick survey named a very poor amount, far beneath even the cost of the fence. The boy, now a man, stood dismayed and demanded the serious man in a hat be serious and look closer. His father told him the most valuable possession in the whole world was the ground he stood upon, and this was it. Maybe there were rare gems just beneath the surface? The serious man in a hat shook his head and said, "No, there's not. It's really a poor piece of ground as ground goes." As he walked away, the serious man in a hat looked back and saw the boy, now a man, on his knees clawing at the ground, searching for riches that were never there.
The boy, a man now, an old man, found he had dug a hole big enough to be his grave, and so he lay down in it and died. Boy, a man, an old man now, and now a shadow, wandered the world, and soon met the shadow of his father. He shared his despair.
"Father, you told me the ground I stood upon was my greatest possession. I lived and died guarding it. In the end, it was only good for a poor grave." His father sighed a ghostly sigh and said, "Son, you could have spent your lifetime enjoying all the world's wonders and discovering all its riches. Instead, you claimed a tiny piece of it. Now you stand upon nothing, with no joy and none to remember."
Classification: swimmers, eider duck, Somateria mollissima, of the family Anatidae. The eider duck first claims our attention as not only the largest and most beautiful of the diving ducks, but also the most useful member of the family, ornamenting the seas they most frequent, and conferring inestimable benefit upon the inhabitants of the inhospitable coasts where they are common.
The general plumage is soft, thick, and fleecy. In the adult male, the prevailing colors are simply black and white. The head, however, is ornamented with sea green. The color of the female is brownish-gray or reddish-brown. The eider duck is strictly a seabird. Upon dry land, they walk with extreme difficulty, and as they clumsily waddle along, often stumble and fall down flat on the ground.
They rarely rise to any height in the air, but wing their way straight down into the water beneath, and it is only when they reach this, their proper element, that they begin to show their real capabilities.
Long ago, when the world was new, a sea of grass covered the earth. The sound of hooves echoed through the rolling hills where the horse lords ruled. Fresh water, lakes, and streams were the only interruption as the great herds moved horizon to horizon. The true heavens of the sea roiled deep beneath the soil. One horse lord stood above them all, and he was king.
His rule lasted for many years with no rival until one day a young Salian, son of the 7th generation, issued a challenge. When the king met him on the field, few could tell them apart. So well matched were they. The skies filled with wings as bird of all feathers fled their fury.
As the battle raged, their sharp hoofs spiked the earth, creating cavernous cracks that broke the world into pieces. The great oceans boiled up between pushing the flat lands and the mountains and valleys that forever after only echoed the sound of the once great herds.
Every storm is a testament. The lightning on the horizon is their teeth clashing. The rumble of thunder is their hooves crashing.
The queen, mother to all, saw the destruction and gathered those left on a fragment of the once great kingdom, led all away until they found peace. There the herd rested. There the birds nested. To this day, the two stallions fight to be king of the world that is no more and a family that is long gone.
Classification: catchers, hawk, Accipiter genitilis, of the family Accipitridae. Living almost invariably alone, the hawk's disposition is cunning and violent, and its movements active and powerful. When upon the wing, it may be seen hovering and then rushing down upon its prey, cleaving the air with great force.
So rapacious is this formidable bird that its destructive attacks are repeated almost without intermission during the entire day on birds of all sizes, and even rabbits and squirrels. Some of the smaller are so paralyzed with fear at the approach of their destroyer that they crouch down incapable of moving a limb.
It is impossible for these birds to live together, so great is their ferocity. They cannot restrain their murderous propensities. Feathered denizens of the forest, swift of wing enough to elude the hawk, pursue it fearlessly wherever it appears. Crows are particularly inclined to harass the hawk, avenging the wrongs of their more helpless companions.
Once there lived a boy named Wick Wildhair, so named for a massive thatch of hair atop his head. It was always tangled in bushes and cotton branches. Every evening he chased out nesting birds, and every morning he chased out roosting bats. Wherever he went, Wick Wildhair was laughed at, and so he lived a very unhappy life.
Do you see this hair?
One day, a king was riding by in his royal carriage. His horses reared to stop in fear of the sight of Wick Wildhair. The king marveled to see such a wild head of hair. He roared with laughter and ordered Wick to come with him to his castle at once. Back at the castle, the king placed Wick near the throne as he conducted his court. Now his majesty was renowned for being meek and mild, easily influenced by his queen, his court, and even his cook, who every day only made him cabbage soup, saying, "You love cabbage soup, your highness." In fact, the king hated cabbage soup. That day of all days, seeing Wick Wildhair by his side, the king said, "No, I hate cabbage soup. Bring me something new, something wild. And if you dare serve cabbage soup again, your head best be in the pot."
And so it went with everything that day and thereafter. Emboldened by Wick's wild hair, the king threw off meekness and his kingdom flourished, and so did Wick, who now had servants to chase out nesting birds and roosting bats.
And this one. Ooh. And what?
As it often does, fame and good fortune led to tyranny. His armies flew a new flag, a silhouette of Wick's wild hair, as it conquered all lands coast to coast. So reigned the meek king, made mighty by his lucky charm with the wild hair.
One day, the king and Wick awoke to the sound of thunder, although there wasn't a cloud in the sky. The king and Wick looked out and marveled. A barbarian horde had landed on the farthest coast and pillaged and burned the undefeated right to the castle gate. So vast was this horde that the old king immediately went out to surrender.
I surrender.
Their war chief towered above the old king. He wore a fierce helmet that covered his head. The war chief bellowed, "I heard songs of glory for a great king and his lucky charm with the wild hair, and so I came to see that for myself. Here you are, but where's the lucky charm that made you so great?"
Wick was brought before him. The war chief roared with laughter at the sight. And then lifted off his huge helmet. A massive shock of hair exploded above his head. Birds and bats took flight as it blocked the sun. The war chief roared,
"Bring me cabbage soup and put something wild in the pot."
And so this is where our journey ends for now as birds and as actors. It's been a strange year for everyone. In summary, our feathered friends continue through 7 valleys, including the Valley of Unity, the Valley of Astonishment, the Valley of Nothingness, each with its own challenges, including mortality. After many dangerous challenges and great adventures, the brave survivors finally reach the sacred mountain. But instead of Simorg, they find a frozen lake as reflective as a mirror. That's when they realize they are Simorg, and the responsibility and ability to lead the world out of chaos is actually inside each one of them, waiting like a phoenix to rise and take wing.